Many of these so-called evil practices were just ancient wisdom passed down through midwives, healers, priestesses, and wise women. Women who worked with plants, women who read the stars, women who trusted their dreams. But they were branded witches. And they were feared because they didn't need a priest to connect to the divine. They were the divine. Hi, I'm Ashleigh, and welcome to the Big Crystal Energy Podcast. This is a place for the crystal curious, arcane minded, and everything in the in-between. In this podcast, we will jump down the rabbit hole into the metaphysical, esoteric, occult, and spiritual realms. Nothing is off limits. I'm a mom, wife, an orthopedic physician assistant by day, and a seeker of all things spooky and kooky by night. I've spent my entire career in the medical field, but have always felt like there is more out there, and this is where we will explore together. We will have conversations with crystal healers, rock hounds, artists, musicians, spiritual coaches, magic makers, and anything woo-woo that strikes our fancy. Let's take our spiritual journey to the next level. So grab a crystal, pour a cup of tea. It's time to feel the Big Crystal Energy. Hey friends, welcome back to the Big Crystal Energy Podcast. I'm Ashleigh, and I am so glad that you're here. This is the podcast where we talk all things mystical, magical, and just a little bit weird. And I say that with full love and pride. And I tell you what, every time I'm about ready to record, it is always just a little bit of an ordeal because I have to make sure my incense is right. And I have to make sure that the background is right, even though don't look at the background. It's a mess today. My hair's kind of a mess today too. So don't look at that either. I skipped my last hair appointment and I'm just going to get it done before we do our summer travels. I got to get my drink just right. I needed a little bit of a gin and tonic before we started because you know what? It's Saturday and it's been a day. It's been a day. I've been home with the kids all day, driving me crazy. So cheers to that. If you're a parent, you know, especially if you're a parent of wild little kids. Whoo, my boys, they're 8 and 2.5. Oh my goodness, are they off the rails all the time. So today, we are diving into a topic that honestly I've been wanting to talk about for a long time. And that is, why are people so put off by crystals and metaphysical practices? Why are people like us seen as weird or kooky or out there just because we believe in energy and intuition and the power of the unseen? And even deeper than that, why do some men, potentially even women, get really uncomfortable around crystal girlies? And why does Christianity in particular often label metaphysical practices as evil or dangerous? Yeah, we're going there today. Buckle up. And as a shout out, this episode was inspired by my friend, John Anthony. He was the true instigator behind this episode because we were talking at work. Honestly, people are always trying to feed me episode ideas, and the idea for this episode, or let's say an iteration of this episode, came up while we were working in the operating room, sewing up bodies. It's not quite like that. It's orthopedic surgery. So there is definitely a level of sewing up bodies that does go on. And let me tell you, during that sewing portion of the surgery, there's a lot of conversation that happens, and sometimes it gets pretty weird. So he was the one that kind of gave me the idea a while back about this episode. And I was like, you know what? This is a great topic. Let's go there. It may be a little bit controversial, I have to say. I may get some slack for some of the things that I'm going to say on this episode. And you know what? Honestly, I'm okay with that. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. It is what it is. But before we get started, what is giving me big crystal energy this week? Ding, 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 ding. Okay. So, oh my gosh, friends. If you've been here for a while, you know that I have been obsessing about our upcoming family trip to Iceland in June. I'm in the midst. Sorry, I cannot even talk. I am tired. Per usual. I'm in the midst of finalizing our plans. And this week I booked an adventure for my husband and I, John and I. There is this place in Iceland where you can snorkel between two tectonic plates. And for a nerdy girl like myself, This is the only place in the world where you can do that, essentially. But you are swimming in ice cold glacier water. The good part is you wear a dry suit. So from the reviews that I have read and from the videos that I have watched, the people swear that you are not cold other than your face, and and your hands do get kind of cold inside the gloves that they give you. But I am so pumped, and it's just a dream come true. I was on the fence, like, should I do it? Should we not do it? It's going to be challenging because we have the kids. Obviously, they can't participate because, they're too small. So I was just looking at different things, and I was like, you know what, we can make it work because I could go first. And then when I'm done, I could take over with the kids, and then John can go, so that we can both experience this, not together, but essentially side by side. And it's fine because there's people there that they offer GoPro photos of you while you're snorkeling and stuff. And it's not like you can talk to the person that you're with anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So it's going to be super epic. We're going to be swimming in crystal clear glacier water. Honestly, I may never return. I am so pumped. So pumped. I can't believe it. Today, I was counting on the calendar. We are 27 days away from departure. So I'm trying to wrap up so much stuff for the podcast and get all my interviews finalized and everything, so that when we're traveling, all I have to manage is like the social media stuff, and I don't have to worry about episodes and interviews and all of that stuff. And then I can just get back into the routine once I'm home from the trip. So it's getting real, friends. It's getting real. So back to the topic of this podcast. So let's just start with surface level stuff. People often react to crystals and spiritual practices with skepticism. I see it all the time. Mockery. There's sometimes even hostility, because I think it challenges what we are taught to believe is real. Western culture is rooted in science, logic, and rationalism. If you can't measure it, see it, or quantify it, it's dismissed. But here's the kicker. Just because something's unseen doesn't mean it's unreal. Crystals hold energetic frequency. Intuition is a form of intelligence. Energy is basically everything. People who are deeply conditioned to only trust the material, anything mystical equals weird. So that gets amplified, especially when it's women who are the ones claiming the power. So a lot of this episode is just going to be about why women, especially crystal girls especially, are considered weird or out there. But here's the thing. So almost every major religion or spiritual practice has an element of the unseen or the mystical baked right into it. Number one, Christianity. So we have belief in angels, demons, miracles, and prayer as a form of divine communication. You're literally talking to an invisible force, asking for guidance, healing, or intervention. That's energy work by another name. In Catholicism, we have saints, relics, holy water, and the concept of transubstantiation. Say that over and over again, which is basically where the bread and wine become the literal body and blood of Christ. That's some high-level alchemy, right? I mean, come on. In Islam, we have angels, jinn, and divine dreams that convey spiritual messages. The Prophet Muhammad is said to have received the Quran through a divine revelation, a mystical experience. In Judaism, the Kabbalah explores the mystical aspects of the Torah, diving into divine energies, numerology, and sacred geometry. Hinduism focuses on chakras, kundalini energy, and meditation. All involve unseen forces, energy centers, and spiritual awakening. In Buddhism, we have enlightenment is a state of consciousness that transcends the physical. Meditation opens the doors to realms beyond ordinary perception. So when people side-eye, crystal energy or tarot cards, what they're really doing is cherry picking which forms of mystical they consider acceptable, usually the ones that align with mainstream culture or their own religious upbringing. And that's not to discredit the religion. There's beauty and power in prayer, ritual, and sacred symbols, but let's not pretend that the unseen is exclusive to crystal girls and those of us that are more into the woo-woo. It's just not. We're not the only ones. Because at the end of the day, we're all working with unseen forces. Some call it prayer, some call it energy, some call it God, some call it universe, but it's all the same. The current that runs through everything. Okay, so let's talk about crystal girl energy. I have male listeners, and I'm not here to call you out or call all men out. I'm just speaking to maybe some of the men in my own life that think all this crystal talk is kooky and out there. I've even talked with men into my day-to-day life, like work colleagues and friends, and they all seem to roll their eyes and have the same thing to say about all of this. And you've seen the memes. If you're listening to this podcast or are a crystal lover, you've probably been the meme. She's into astrology, has 12 decks of oracle cards, and won't text you back until Mercury goes direct. I mean, it's just, all that stupid, silly stuff. And while I find it funny, I also find it like, okay. But here's the truth. The reason that some men, and let's be honest, maybe even some women, are put off by spiritual women is because we're not easily controlled. We listen to our intuition. We're healing our trauma. We're setting energetic boundaries. We're not prioritizing logic over inner knowing. And that makes us unpredictable to a culture that teaches men to dominate, fix, and explain everything. Once again, I am generalizing because I know there are men out there that don't do those things. But honestly, even with my husband, and I don't try to put him on blast right now, but he is a man, and at times he has a tendency to want to fix everything. He wants to micromanage and control things, and that is human nature. But he is also very open and accepting to who I am and realizes that having my own spiritual practice actually makes me a more grounded person. So I don't say all this to offend. I just say this because I have had so many conversations with men mostly about these things. And oftentimes they seem very put off by women that are into spirituality or into crystals or into these things because they, have all these preconceived notions about who we are and what we do and what it all means and that it's fake and all of that stuff. But I mean, the thing is, if you actually compare what we do to what so many other religions and spiritualities do, it's actually not that much different. It's just that our tools from the outside may seem a little bit different. I think that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. Let's dive even deeper. Okay, so because this isn't just about crystals, tarot cards, or essential oils, this is about power. Historically, metaphysical practices like astrology, herbalism, divination, and energy work were labeled evil by institutions like the church because they existed outside their control. The Bible warns against sorcery and divination because what gets lost in translation is that many of these so-called evil practices were just ancient wisdom passed down through midwives, healers, priestesses, and wise women. Women who worked with plants, women who read the stars, women who trusted their dreams. But they were branded witches. And they were feared because they didn't need a priest to connect to the divine. They were the divine. That fear didn't disappear, and it has not disappeared. It's in our cultural bones. It's in how certain Christians or people of other religions will say crystals are evil or crystals are demonic. Like, friend, seriously, it's a literal rock from the earth, created by God. If that's your belief system, a stone from the earth cannot be demonic. I mean, come on. I've had personal experiences from other women saying they support my practices and they're happy for me and my spirituality, but they also don't want me to influence their kids. And I'm not sure how looking at a stone that was made by the earth can negatively influence a kid. But at the end of the day, things like that can be hurtful. Like, you don't trust me with your kid because I believe in the energy of nature. Honestly, it doesn't even make sense. And I'm also not saying this to be anti-Christian or anti-religion, because I have many friends that love all things metaphysical that are also Christian or Buddhist or whatever, different religious or spiritual backgrounds. But I am saying this because many people often hear about our practices and immediately assume they are negative, bad, or evil in some way without even understanding what they are, and completely relying on assumptions. And that is part of, that's the part that really grinds my bones. It's like, you assume that me working with my stones and me working with my incense and different things, it's bad or evil because somewhere in the Bible it said that divination and these things are evil. But what am I doing that's evil? I don't know. I don't know. I have yet to figure that out. I have yet to figure out what thing I'm doing is so bad. But yet it seems to be perceived by society in quite a negative way. And I don't even have a label for myself. Like, I don't follow any one specific spiritual belief pattern. I don't have a title for myself. I would just say that I'm someone that enjoys working with crystals. I'm someone that enjoys working with, tarot cards, energy work, things like that. But it doesn't necessarily have a label. And for me, that works because I don't really like having a label. I don't want to be considered one particular thing. I don't want to be pigeonholed into one particular thing, because I like to adopt ideas from lots of different traditions, right? There are things in Christianity that I do like. There are things from many different spiritual practices that I do like. And I just kind of create my own belief system based on what, number one, makes sense and what feels right to me. And at the end of the day, you can't tell me that that's a wrong way to be. Because I feel like, especially I've shared in the past how from my own personal journey, I grew up mostly kind of straddling the line between the Catholic faith and the Presbyterian faith. My dad's side was Catholic, my mom's side was Presbyterian, and I had two incredible grandmothers who were very devout Christians in their respective religions. And I wanted to be a good kid. I would go to church with them. I went through the whole Catholic catechism with, baptism and first communion and confirmation and all of the things within Catholicism. I went through all of that, but it never really connected for me. And so this is a bit of a tangent, but, when my husband and I decided to get married, he grew up Catholic too. So we could have easily just had a Catholic wedding, but at the end of the day, I just didn't feel connected enough to formally commit myself to that. So I felt that I just wanted to have a spiritual ceremony rather than a religious ceremony. And so we just hired someone to basically help us share our vows to each other and commit our lives to each other. And it wasn't under any sort of religious pretense. We had a very non-religious ceremony, and that was what felt good. But, now I'm at a different stage in life where, we're going on this trip to Iceland. We're doing a vow renewal. And to me, this feels like a much more spiritual connection and commitment to each other than even our wedding day, just because we have evolved as people so much over the years. And truth be told, at the time of the original wedding, I was not even a spiritual person at that point. I was just a young girl, just basically trying to survive, just getting up and going through the motions and trying to create my career and work out and try to eat healthy and, pay off my student loans. And I didn't even think about spirituality. I didn't think about any of that stuff in any sense. So things have changed a lot over the years. But, that's another whole tangent. But I think that's why having this vow renewal that we're doing just between the two of us, and basically in a beautiful place where we're really connected to the earth and with our children watching, I feel that that's so much more spiritual and so much more empowering and so much more devotional than even our original wedding. Hey, sorry to interrupt, but I have something you need to hear. Have you been feeling a shift, a pull towards something more? Whether you're manifesting new opportunities, confidence, or a major glow up, the universe is listening, and I've got just the thing. In a crystal clarity call, I'll intuitively select 3 crystals to support your manifestations, pull a tarot or oracle card for deeper guidance, and craft custom journal prompts to help you take action. It's more than a reading, it's an energetic roadmap. So if you're ready to align with your highest self, DM me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash for details and pricing. Let's bring your magic to life. Sorry, that was a huge tangent. But at the end of the day, a lot of people that follow traditional religious pathways, especially here in the United States, might look down on us doing a vow renewal in such a non-traditional way and think that that was not good or appropriate in some way, and may actually be kind of judgy about that. So, I mean, honestly, it's even made it so I'm sort of reserved about telling family and things about it, about the vow renewal, because it is outside of what would be considered normal. And, I think of myself probably as already the black sheep of the family. So I don't know if they would actually consider me that, but truth be told, I'm a little bit more out there than most of everybody else. So, and I'm okay with that, obviously. So moving on, another common criticism we as crystal loving, card pulling, mystical people is that we're not really grounded in reality, right? So people say things like, oh, just tarot it's just made up nonsense, or astrology is so negative. You're just using it to justify your behaviors, things like that. But let's unpack this a little bit. Tarot is a tool for self-reflection, not typically fortune telling, although some practices do use tarot for fortune telling, but not me personally. I don't know even how to do that. In tarot, each card represents archetypes and universal experiences, things that we all go through, such as grief, joy, transformation, love, loss, rebirth. You could think of it like a visual journaling prompt. It's a way to check in with your subconscious and bring hidden emotions or thoughts to the surface. For me, when I sit down and I work with my cards for my own self, I kind of think about it as therapy. Astrology is something that I don't know much about, but astrology is a cosmic map. It's not about predestination. It's about potential. Your birth chart shows the energies and influences that you were born under. It doesn't dictate your life. It's like weather. You can check the forecast and decide how to dress. The forecast is not always a perfect practice. And neither practice is inherently negative. The negativity comes from how people interpret them. If someone uses astrology to justify toxic behavior, that's not on astrology. That's on the person that is misusing it. And the same thing can be said for tarot cards or oracle cards. And as for being grounded, there's nothing more grounding than knowing yourself, understanding your patterns, and making conscious choices based on deeper self-awareness. Tarot and astrology don't pull you out of reality. They help you see it more clearly. I can completely attest to all of the things that I just explained, because I know that once I stepped into the practice that I have now, and once I started working with tarot cards, and once I started working with crystals, I have become far more introspective. I have become far more grounded. I have learned myself and my patterns much more. And it's also helped me understand the patterns and behaviors of my friends and coworkers and my husband and my children and my parents and, all these people in my life. I look at things in such a different way that I try not to let all of those things and influences rattle me as much, because I have my practice to fall back on. If I'm ever feeling a certain way, I can sit down and I can pull some cards and I can get those intuitive hits and I can get those messages from the universe that often guide me to a much calmer space. Never do I read my cards, never do I work with my stones and walk away feeling worse or negative in any way or have a bad experience. It's always a beautiful experience. It's always an opportunity to slow down and take a step away and have a breather and just have a moment for myself to just decompress, because life is busy. We all know that. I mean, I'm at a stage in life where life is just totally feeling like it's off the rails most of the time. I've got 2 hyperactive little boys. My husband's very busy. He's working 2 full time. He's got his real estate business, and life just feels wild a lot. And if I didn't take the time and the energy to take a step back and just focus on the things that I feel that are important for me in my practice, then I would probably feel like I was drowning, honestly. So where people get this idea that we are not grounded in reality, I feel like, honestly, I am more grounded in reality now that I have these practices. So if you've ever been called weird or too spiritual, woo-woo, or out there, I want to tell you something. You're not weird. You're remembering. Okay, maybe you are a little weird, but own it. You're remembering what the world tried to make us forget, that magic is real, energy matters, and we are powerful beyond belief. Let them roll their eyes. Let them joke. Let them side-eye your crystal collection. You're not here to prove your path. You're here to walk it. You don't walk around forcing everyone in your world to justify their spiritual paths. So I don't understand why it's okay for others to feel like it's okay I don't understand why others feel like it's okay for them to do that to us that follow this type of path. If you have a real heartfelt question, I am happy to answer that. And if you want to lovingly tease me, that's okay too. But don't be surprised if I rib you about the things that you believe. There are many times that we can agree to disagree. And I also think, which I sort of stated before, many of our practices are linked. We just have different ways of interpreting them or understanding them. But oftentimes there's so many things that overlap between all religions and all cultures and all different parts of this world. There are many ways to exist in this world. There are literally thousands of religions and spiritual practices. There is no way that one could be correct. Find what works for you and lean into it. This community is open-minded. If you are Christian, but also love crystals, I'm here for it. If you are Hindu, but also want to pull tarot cards, let's go. I don't care, but show up authentically, have an open mind. There's so much in the world we can't explain. Trust me, I am skeptical too. I have college degrees in biology and genetics. I went to medical school. I am very much rooted in science, but I also realize the things in life that have helped me the most, other than my Lexapro, are earth-based and metaphysically based and rely heavily on my intuition. So yeah. Kind of to wrap things up on this episode, because I want to keep it shorter tonight, I decided that I would use one of my weird practices and pull a tarot card. And I was shuffling the deck right before I aired this episode, because I like to pull the card ahead of time, ahead of recording, because number one, I'm relatively new to tarot. So I need time to sit with the card and just kind of take in my interpretation of it, and then just write out what I feel it means for us and this episode in particular. And it's interesting because as I was shuffling, one particular card flew out of the deck. And it's so funny because this is also the same card that I pulled for the Aries season episode. It's the Emperor. And what I also find funny is that this card keeps coming up over and over and over again for me over the past several months. So the Emperor, you have the Emperor, he or she, let's see, looks like a she in this particular photo here, is dressed in a fabulous red suit and just looks very sleek and in control and empowered. She has a crown on. She's sitting in a very regal chair, and she's got the city behind her. And I'm not sure if that's snow or water or something. Something white is in the background. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but the emperor is very put together. The emperor is all about structure, authority, and standing firm in your truth. It's the archetype of leadership, stability, and owning your power. This card is a reminder to stand confidently in what you believe, even if it goes against the grain or challenges societal norms. So, I loved this card, especially for this episode, because in regard to authority and structure, just like the emperor holds his ground or her ground, those of us who embrace metaphysical practices are often seen as too out there because we're not conforming to conventional structures or belief systems. The emperor reminds us to hold firm in our spiritual authority unapologetically. This card is also about confidence in your path. The emperor doesn't seek approval. She knows her path is valid. Similarly, we don't need to justify why we use crystals, why we use tarot or astrology to those who don't get it. We're creating our own foundations and structures rooted in what feels right to us. In regard to balancing logic and intuition, the emperor is a blend of kind of like a masculine logic and divine intuition. This episode is about finding that balance, grounding our spiritual practices in clear, relatable language while still embracing the mystical and unseen. So, that is what I had for you. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know if you have something else to add. Something else that people call you out about because you are on this path. I truthfully hear it all. I have one particular person who's always begging to come on the podcast because he pretty much just wants to heckle me and call out all the different things that I believe. So I'm like, yeah, that's not really the energy that I need around here. I have people heckling me pretty much on the daily anyway. But the thing is, I think people are easy to give those of us that follow a more spiritual path a hard time. And they're just fine teasing us and saying what we believe is weird or that we're weird or whatever. But yet they get very offended when we try to say anything about their beliefs. And I think what it comes down to at the end of the day is that we really just need to be respectful of what other people believe. If you're not harming anyone, if you're a good person, if you're helpful, then it shouldn't really matter what you believe as long as it's working for you and it's helping you improve your life and it's making you a good, better person. So that's my stance. I think probably a lot of people would believe that or agree with that. I don't know. Let me know what you think. I truthfully am very open to all different religions, all different types of people, but I don't really have tolerance for people that are overly judgmental and that are mean and critical and just want to make fun of us and try to tear us down because they think that the practices that we have are any less substantial than the things that they practice and the beliefs that they withhold. Maybe because I don't have a specific text like the Bible that I particularly follow, that doesn't mean that there aren't messages in the Bible that I believe are good and that I could believe in. It just means that that's not the one text that I live my life by. It means that I have a combination of many different things that I live my life by. And truth be told, I kind of think that that's better. When we box ourselves into the corner of one thing, I think that that really leaves a lot of room for us to become more closed-minded. And I don't think that's such a great way to live. This is just my take on all of this. And, personally, I'm just happy for finding the path that I've found. I've met so many interesting people along the way. And yeah, sometimes I encounter people, even myself, when I'm out and about that just seem kind of really out there when it comes to these things, but are they harming me? Are they hurtful people? No. They just have their beliefs and their patterns and their way of going about life. And wouldn't this world be so boring if we all believed exactly the same thing and we all read the same book and we all followed and practiced the same way of life? That would be so boring. We need all these different things to make our lives interesting and fulfilled and colorful and wonderful. So, even if you are someone that's really strong in your faith, it's nice sometimes to just learn about a different religious practice, just to have that knowledge. I recall at one point when I was in college, I really thought about going into religious studies because I find it so fascinating to follow all these different religions, because they do all end up kind of coming back to the same thing, is what I find so interesting. Anyway, enough rambling on for tonight. If this episode resonated with you, share it with your favorite weird girly friend or a friend who still hides her crystals in her nightstand. And hey, if you're on your own spiritual path and want guidance, clarity, or a little crystal magic, book a crystal clarity call with me. I'll pull cards, recommend crystals, and offer journal prompts to help you feel aligned and powerful as hell. Link is in the show notes. Until next time, stay spooky, stay kooky, and keep your vibes high. Blessed be. Bye. Thank you so much for jumping down the rabbit hole with me. If you connected with this episode in any way, I would love it if you could share it with a friend. Also, please tag me on social media. I'm at mystical.mama.ash or at Big Crystal Energy Podcast, mostly on Instagram. It helps so much getting my episodes out there and finding more magical, kooky, and spooky friends. Sending you all Big Crystal Energy. Cheers!